It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Now you may ask yourself, why would I want to go to emailrevealer.com? I'll tell you. Let's say that you have a spouse that's a deadbeat spouse and they're not paying their child support. And you can't collect that child support because you don't know where they work. Well, if you go to emailrevealer.com and you look up the current employment location search, you click on that and you fill out a little form with your ex-spouse's name and address and stuff like that. Whatever you got. You got his birth date, his name. If you got his social security number, great. And we can locate their place of employment. We can also do an asset search on them. Find out if they got any money hidden away. If you want to reopen your child support litigation. So that's why you would go to emailrevealer.com. But that's just one reason. You want to locate somebody, right? Spring is in the air. You're thinking of your old boyfriend, your old girlfriend. You don't know where they went. I can find them for you. Emailrevealer.com. Also check out oppermanreport.com. We have a special member section. Yep, for members. You sign up, you become a member, and we have all kinds of exclusive content in there that you won't find Friday Night Live or Saturday Night Live. Real quick, I want to apologize to the people over at PSN and Awake Radio and People's Internet Radio over there in Ireland, because we had a little dead air in the last segment. I don't know what happened. I just checked the old Sam broadcaster there, and I saw that nothing was playing. And somehow the show had ended a couple of minutes early over there. I hope you didn't miss any of that show because we had two really, really good guests. I don't want to compliment my own show, but the guests were very good. We had Charles Ortel, who was a Harvard MBA, and he's done all this investigation. And the guy's an expert on charities and all that kind of stuff, and he did all this investigation into the Clinton Foundation. And it came up with just incredibly shocking information. The charities are a total sham and a total con. Their paperwork's not up to date. They don't have it. And the big thing that's coming out, it's going to be coming out in the news shortly, that he announced on our show, is that the Clinton Foundation in Norway was giving grants of money to organizations that do not even exist. Another thing that came out is that it appears that Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted pedophile, when he was giving those rides to Bill Clinton, on the plane there with a soft-core porn star, was on it, one occasion, that he was writing those trips off as a donation to the Clinton Foundation. Yeah, I love it. Reminds me, I was on Chuck Ocelli's show, The Ocelli Effect, on American Freedom Radio. I was on there Wednesday night that just passed, and we had a discussion. Started out about Epstein and Trump and all that kind of stuff. I've been doing research all day long, reading the Trump deposition and the Trump, what's that thing called? The Trump University lawsuit. And about a week ago, Pierce Redmond from Porkins Policy, who's also an expert on Epstein, sent me all these ProQuest searches that a listener friend of his had sent to him, and he didn't even have a chance to look at it. And as I was going through all of that, too, and a lot of interesting stuff in there. You know what? I'll upload that to the Opperman Report, because you're not going to find that anywhere. ProQuest is a database search. It's like NexusLexis. And it also includes college theses and dissertations and white papers and things like that. A lot of libraries. It's not very well known, but a lot of libraries have LexisNexis and ProQuest and these different database searches you can go there and use for free, without even having a license or anything like that. So you just got to kind of ask them if they have it or not. But in that ProQuest, one of these ProQuest search documents, and I'll upload them all because there's a lot of stuff in there too about how Epstein in the Virgin Islands. He's up to some shenanigans down there, guys. He has a charitable organization that funds a science fair for kids. He has a charitable organization that funds a youth orchestra. There's another one that runs a youth basketball team. This guy has no business being around kids whatsoever, and he's up to a lot of shenanigans, and someone has to keep their eye on him. Lucky me. There was a article in one of those ProQuest searches that describes a magazine article or some kind of publication. Could be like a little weekly newspaper or something like that. I'm not sure what it was. I didn't bother to make a note of it. There's been so much going on. And it describes a tennis tournament at Mar-a-Lago down there in Palm Beach, which, as you know, is owned by Donald Trump. And he lives there. By the way, Donald Trump lives at Mar-a-Lago. Okay? And he's walking around, all day long looking for attention. That character. It's not like things are going on there he doesn't know about. And there was a tennis tournament there, and Jeffrey Epstein was an invited guest, and so was Prince Andrew. And there's a description of a photograph that includes Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this is not available on a Google search. You can't find this on Google. And you can't find, the pictures doesn't come up in the ProQuest search. We have to get a hold of that publication, contact that publisher, and get a copy of that picture. It can be done. So if someone's out there wants to do it, do it. I don't get the credit. I don't care. But this kind of stuff needs to be done, either by me or someone else. That's funny. I got a funny story to tell you about my audition on Monday with that documentary in the UK. It just reminded me of it. But we got to get a hold of that picture with the Jeffrey Epstein thing like that. Let's see what else going on. Also, too, we had on before that, and I'm going to put all those ProQuest documents up on the member section. What I was going to say is a little trick that Prince Andrew did in the caption for that photo was he described himself, he identified himself as Andrew York, not Prince Andrew, but Andrew York. So a little clever guy. They're keeping a low profile. They even mentioned it in the article that he was keeping a low profile. Oh my God. Boy, look at all these notes. People are chatting away in that chat room. Typing their little fingers to the bone. Tick, 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 tick. You hear them typing. Okay. I'll tell you the story now. Because it is kind of funny. Kind of fits into what we're... real quick, too. I interviewed tonight, as a matter of fact. We were supposed to play an interview I did with Kevin Sullivan, who was the expert on Ted Bundy. And he just wrote a new book about the trail of Ted Bundy, uncovering all the digging up the hidden stories. Because he went and talked to Bundy's relatives and friends. And there is some interesting stuff that he came up with. Some new stuff, guys. You might recall the picture of Ted Bundy where he's in a kitchen and he's washing dishes with this blonde woman, And so he contacted all the people in that picture who lived in that house. And one of the guys who lived in that house was one of the Utah Mormons when Ted was living up in Utah. Turns out this guy admitted to Kevin Sullivan that when Bundy was being held in jail, pre-trial, that he smuggled money into him. And that Bundy was telling him how he was going to escape. And he was describing how an escape could happen. So really interesting, because I definitely think that Bundy had help in a lot of stuff with these escapes and these cars and these licenses and all this stuff going on, getting money into the jail. Yeah, something was going on there. So a great interview with Kevin Sullivan. He's a great guy. I really like him. Always has a lot to say. So I might as well tell you now, because it's kind of funny, about my audition. I was telling you guys on Friday how I had an audition on Monday, a Skype audition, for this documentary series that will be taking place in the UK in Manchester, England, about those Manchester pushing, when they push the people into the water over there in Manchester, going on. And so, I had to do the Skype audition. And I had it all set up on my laptop over in the kitchen, pointing to the nice clean wall, and I washed the wall. So I could do my little audition. It turned out that the audio wasn't good enough, so we had to move over to my desk, and I did it from there. And I got to get a hold of this reel, because they kept they would ask you questions and say, well, we'll say this, tell them how you're not gonna take no for an answer when you go to the UK, and you're this tough guy from New York, you're this PI, this hardened PI, gonna come there. Tell them how you're gonna use your digital forensics to uncover this case. And then I would have to do my little spiel, and then they're gonna edit it all together. It's called a sizzle reel. That's how they do it. Then they show it to the producers, and they get funding for it. So these guys have pitched a lot of deals, and they've been very successful. So we should know on that in about a month. But it looks really good, because they came to me. They came looking for me in that deal. And they want me. It's not like one of these deals, I've done a lot of these pitches. But this one was a lot of fun. And I thought of some great stuff after I did the pitch. I should call them back and see if we can tape some more. They'll probably go for it. But I thought of this line where I'll go, hey, listen. I didn't come all the way to Manchester, England for tea and crumpets. I came here for answers. 'Cause that's the kind of stuff that they want. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it off. I mean, I might do more of a Columbo thing like I was saying on Friday. But anyway, listen, it's a lot of fun. Let's see what we get out of it. It's a nice little paycheck, too, if it goes through. So that'll be nice. I can use a paycheck. Okay, let's see. I'm very excited about a couple of things. Which one will I tell you about first? Okay. Do you remember when we first met? Do you remember a TV show? It was a TV series. It was the first reality TV series on PBS back in around 1970, 71, 72. And it was called An American Family. The Loud family. Their name was Loud. And it was Lance Loud. He was the young homosexual guy. And it was Grant, his older brother. It was kind of like the lazy rock star bum around the house. And then they had the girl who was the dancer. And then they had the mother and the father. And the father was like this salesman who drove, flew around the planet selling his construction equipment. And they were all alcoholics, the whole bunch of them. It was really funny. Anyway, so this was the first reality TV series that was ever came on TV. And it took 7 months. They filmed this family for 7 months. And there had never been a reality TV show before this. And this one was real. And it just turned this family upside down because the parents actually got divorced during this series. They broke up, and she served them with the divorce papers right there, live on. They're not live, but, in front of these cameras. And he was just devastated and in shock. And all this stuff went on. And then they went to New York City. Lance was in New York City. He was staying at the Chelsea Hotel with all these transvestites and stuff like that. And he was kind of a transvestite kind of guy, too. And I remember, because I was 10 years old when this thing came out. And we watched the first couple episodes, and it was like nothing you ever saw on TV before. And my whole family watched it, because I was that young. The whole family was sitting in the room and watched together. And the first couple of episodes was innocent stuff about, how the family lives. Look, they have a pool. They live in Santa Barbara, California. This girl goes takes dance lessons. This guy has a rock band. And this one, this California family. And then, like a couple of episodes down, it's all this stuff about how the son, Lance, in New York City is this flamboyant homosexual, obviously using drugs in the Chelsea Hotel with all his friends were all drug addicts and stuff. And my parents wouldn't let me watch the show anymore. And this made a huge stir. Like, it was on the news. Oh, my God, this groundbreaking television series, and it's very controversial subject matter. it was all discussions, the parents discussing it outside, and we knew there was something secret going on, with this show you weren't allowed to watch. And, and we tried to sneak and watch it and stuff. Well, anyway, long story short, I went on PBS and I was watching, they have a little 2-hour segment where they took all of the 13 weeks and they clipped it together in one 2-hour segment. And by the way, see, I had these tapes on VHS. I taped it one time when they had a marathon on of it. But there were lost episodes, okay, that I had never been able to find. And one of the episodes that was aired on PBS was this crappy version where there was all static and stuff. And somehow now they've got this, because there's episodes that I've never seen before, and I was able to watch some of it last night. So I was excited enough about that. And Lance, who was pretty much stole the show, this young guy Lance, who turned out to be this flamboyant homosexual who was living he was traveling around the world after he was going to Paris, all kind of wild stuff. And very interesting too, with the dynamic of this family. It's because Lance was this very outspoken guy, very flamboyant, very sharp wit, and very theatrical. And obviously there was some kind of conflict with him and his dad, who was kind of conservative playboy type, was cheating on his wife, drinking all the time, in the construction business, traveling salesman, very charming guy. And he was the head of the house, but he was absent from the house because he was traveling around making all this money. There was a lot of money too for the time. So when he got ousted from the house, when the mother filed for divorce live on this TV show, and he gets kicked out of the house, he has to go live in a little one-bedroom condo, it's a one-bedroom apartment. And there's this scene too, where the narrator's this guy too, who he's so like a deadpan. I forget the father's name. But Grant, I forget the father's name, but the father had to leave and move into a one-bedroom apartment. He's not quite settled in yet. And you see him in the kitchen, there's shopping bags everywhere, paper bags, there's a case of beer, All he's like buying salt and pepper. He has nothing in his little one-bedroom apartment, and there his family's living in like this 8-bedroom house. They got 3 cars, a swimming pool, and horses. But when the father gets ousted, Lance comes from New York City and he goes back to live in the house, and Lance takes over the house. Now he's the one, they're like a family meeting, and Lance is doing all the talking and, just running the house now. Very, very, the whole thing's fascinating to me. I just love that kind of stuff. So I watched it last night, the 2-hour version with scenes that I had never seen before. And I said, you know what? Let me see if I could find these people and we can do a show. Because I knew Lance had died. Lance died of AIDS. He became like a writer and, involved in little artistic projects. They all did kind of, TV production stuff and dance production, different things. They're all creative people. So I contacted them last night. And I talked to Grant, who was the older brother, who was the lazy bum, And I chatted. It turns out the parents got back together after their divorce. They got divorced, but they got back together. Supposedly, Lance on his deathbed, his last request was they get back together, they reunite. But I was talking to chat, and we're gonna do a show about this. And I'd like to do several shows, like an hour with Grant, an hour with the parents together, an hour with the sister, and do like a series of shows. How did this affect you? What happened in your life now? And I think that's going to make because this is an iconic. This is the first reality TV show. This is before anything. This is back in 1970, way before the Real World. It's very similar to the way the Real World is done, but I'm really, really excited about that, as you can tell. Chat room went dead, so I guess nobody cares. But I care. I care. That's right. I care. Okay. The name of the show is Doing a Great Job, Brownie. You guys might recall okay. Let me see here. I might want to fill in some stuff before. Okay, I'm going to do a little more filler. Oh yeah, I had a little incident this week. Well, I'll tell you good news and bad news, right? Let's do it that way. Good news is I just heard from Hank Harrison. He's agreed to let me film them. Okay. And the good news is we are 99% there, ready to go. Vic's going to be off from school. The rest of school is Wednesday. And I think we're going to... And so next week, Friday night, they're going to play a tape for me. I'm gonna do some interviews this week, and they're gonna play that for me. Just like you won't notice the difference, except the Spreaker chat room. I may not have run Spreaker next week live, okay? Or if I do, I'll do it from a motel room, a cheap motel, because you know me, I don't spend a lot of money. I'm very cheap, okay? We were hoping to maybe hit some campgrounds and camp out, to save money. But we may have to get a motel room that night. But then we're gonna hit the Bernie rallies. And we're going to go tape with Hank Harrison up in Northern California. I'm also going to try and visit to one of Victoria's friends when she was a little kid. Her friend that used to spend her time at my house every day when she was little. And a little reunification with these two. So that was the plan, and we were also going to cover the Trump rally, because Trump has rallies going on. You see there's riots and stuff here going on today. And so earlier this week, I got my approval, my credentials to, Bernie, I'm hooked up with. I get Bernie press releases now. I'm 100% back in with the Bernie people. But with Trump, I was approved to go to one of these rallies. I forget where it was. And then I made some inquiries about, hey, can you hook me up with the, talking to some people, some friends of this show. Can you hook me up with these women that Bill Clinton had attacked and raped and stuff? Because I heard they've been doing the circuit lately, right? Paula Jones and Kathleen Willey and, these people. And so the word went out, okay, Ed, don't worry. We know just who to talk to about this. Go right to the top. It's all going to be taken care of for you. And instead, my credentials got pulled. My Trump credentials got pulled for California. So it's looking like we will not be able to cover any Trump rallies from inside, but we'll be covering the riots and the protests from outside. Okay. So the good news is Hank Harrison's agreed to tape with us. The bad news is we can't get into Trump rallies. We'll be covering Bernie rallies and Trump rallies from outside. So that's it for that. And one more thing. Tomorrow on American Freedom Radio and on People's Internet Radio and Public Streaming Radio. And you know what? I always forget, too, the new guys. Deprogrammed Radio and IPM Nation. We're on 7 stations tomorrow, and tonight we're on 6. And these 2 new stations are really cool people run both of them. This guy, Matt, runs one, IPM Nation. And this other one's run by this guy named John in the UK. And they're both very supportive in the background. Very cool people. And I always forget to mention them when I'm mentioning all the stations, because I don't plug in with my SAM. They just pick up the broadcast off a Spreaker, and I don't see it, so I always forget to mention them. But tomorrow when we do our show at 5 p.m., which is hosted based out of American Freedom Radio at 5 p.m., I'm going to be talking to this guy named Richard Stratton, who's the author of the book about smugglers, blues, and the hippie mafia. Okay? And we're getting to the small world category, right? Because I remember when I was a kid, I wasn't a kid. I was about 22. It was in the 80s. So I was about 20 years old. I had already moved out of my parents' house. But I remember being at my parents' house and reading the newspaper and seeing an article about how Norman Mailer was involved in this multi-ton, 100-pound hash deal. And they let him go because he claimed that he was he was doing research on a book. And I read this, and I said, what? They let this guy go. And I searched for this story for years and years and years, and for some reason I couldn't find it. It turns out that the William Ramsey booked this guest for me, and it turns out he's the guy in the hash deal, allegedly with Norman Mailer. He claims Mailer had nothing to do with it, and he was the dealer. He did 8 years on this case. But very coincidentally, though, always stuck in my head. And I even asked A.J. Opperman about this when he was on the show, if he heard of this story. Because I know the guys who had all the hash back. I even talked to the other guy, too, Midnight Express guy, Billy Hayes, who was another hash smuggler. Because I knew the guys who had the really good hash at that time in New York City. So I said, man, these guys had to be the ones who were hooked up with Norman Mailer, with the yippies. But turns out, I don't know if it wasn't. I got a feeling the yippies were getting their hash from this guy here, this guy we're going to be interviewing tomorrow. So we're going to finally be solving the case of the mysterious hash and the Norman Mailer story with the hippie mafia and this guy who did 8 years in prison. He was smuggling marijuana and hashish into the country, really good prices way back then. I think he got busted in the 80s. So looking forward to doing that show. That's going to be tomorrow on American Freedom Radio, People's Internet Radio, Public Streaming Network, Awake Radio, IPM Nation, and Deprogram Radio. And then, of course, on iHeart and all that kind of stuff like that. This might be a good time to take a commercial. Okay? Because I'm getting the impression no one's listening. Everybody has their own agenda. Okay. This is your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. And if you're enjoying this show right now, there's more. You can get more. You can go to the Ed Opperman YouTube channel, and you could subscribe there. And we have archives of all of our past shows for over the past 3 years, about 200, 300 shows. You can also go to the Opperman Report Spreaker channel, and you could follow us there. Again, a ton of shows, about 300 shows on there. And whenever we do an impromptu show, an emergency-type broadcast that we do during the week occasionally, you'll get an email notifying you of breaking news and spontaneous broadcasts that we may do during the week. You can also go to OppermanReport.com and become a member. If you become a member, you help support the free archives on Spreaker and YouTube, and you help support the free shows on Friday evening and on Saturday evening. Each of these shows, Friday evening and Saturday evening, are carried for free on 7 internet stations, okay? So you help support that, but also, too, at OppermanReport.com in the members section, we have exclusive content. Shows that are recorded during the week that are only available to members. So please check out OppermanReport.com and help support the show.
The son of a Polish immigrant who grew up in a Brooklyn tenement, Bernie Sanders. He went to public schools, then college, where the work of his life began, fighting injustice and inequality, speaking truth to power. Bernie moved to Vermont, won election and praise as one of America's best mayors. In Congress, Bernie stood up for working families and for principle, opposing the Iraq War, supporting veterans. Now he's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system that holds up a rigged economy. Bernie's campaign is funded by over 1 million small contributions from people like you. He's fighting for living wages, equal pay, and tuition-free public colleges. Bernie Sanders.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders, husband, father, grandfather, an honest leader, building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
Check out strawmanmusic.com. Sean Duff is our webmaster here at the Opperman Report, and he's a very talented musician. He's part of a band called Strawman. They're based up there in Canada. Don't hold that against them. These are like-minded folks. If you like the shows you hear on the Opperman Report, you'll like the music that they have over at strawmanmusic.com.
Enough is enough. Wall Street's greed and illegal behavior drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the 1930s. And then, after getting a huge taxpayer bailout because they were too big to fail, it turns out that 3 out of the 4 largest banks are bigger today than they were before we bailed them out. That's crazy. I'm Bernie Sanders. My plan: break up the big banks who are strangling our economy and make them pay their fair share of taxes. Then we can invest in the middle class, expand Social Security, and provide universal college education. I'll rein in Wall Street behavior so they can't crash our economy again. Will they like me? No. Will they begin to play by the rules if I'm president? You better believe it. I'm Bernie Sanders, Democratic candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
You know, you can get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, if you go to my website, emailrevealer.com. Now, this is a limited edition book, okay? And you can get a signed copy of this book, and it'll be personally autographed to you or whoever you want to give the book to as a gift. Once you have my signature on that book, you can copy the signature and put it on checks and pass them all over the world. Emailrevealer.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator.
He's fought injustice and inequality his whole life. Bernie Sanders. As a college student, he was arrested for challenging segregated housing. Bernie marched with Dr. King and thousands of others for civil rights. In Congress, Bernie stood up for working families on health care and jobs. Now he's taking on Wall Street banks and a corrupt political system that keeps in place a rigged economy. Bernie Sanders, a reformer who believes in ending racial profiling and mass incarceration so the justice system works for everyone. Bernie Sanders.
There is no president who will fight harder to end institutional racism and reform our broken criminal justice system.
Bernie Sanders, an honest leader building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Bernie 2016.
Okay, come on. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. This show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. And don't forget the Opperman Report members section. Real quick, got a little bit of an update for you on Reverend Pinckney. Good old Reverend Pinckney. You know, I didn't hear from him this week, but I did hear from Polly Hughes, who speaks to the Reverend quite often. A couple of things going on. One thing is we did not have success on Monday at the appeal bond hearing. It was not approved. It was denied by these three appellate judges who said, no, Mr. Pinckney, you can't get out on bail while we decide whether or not that the law we put you in prison for is correct or not. So we're just going to work on that while you sit in prison. Hey. Let's see. Now, there's an action tomorrow. Okay, let's get this straight here at the golf course at the PGA. Come on, where is this? I hope this is here. In this thing she sent me. I'm gonna have to find it. But there was an incident this week where the prisoners at Marquette Branch Prison had a little protest. They had a little sit-in protest where they didn't go to their food. They didn't get their food. Out of 1,100 prisoners, only 50 went to chow to pick up their food because they're protesting this Trinity food company that provides the food to the prison. It's so bad, it's like a filthy, disgusting food that they don't want to eat. Trinity Corporation, it's called, and they're the ones who supply the food. So the prisoners down over there with Reverend Pinckney protested this food. But tomorrow should be the PGA protest. Let me see if I can find that over here. Because she was telling me about that. Good old Polly was telling me. In fact, she should be in the chat room. Let's see. Real quick, I'll find this here. That's a little music I play for you. Okay. The PGA in Benton Harbor is tomorrow. I don't know what time it is, but it'll be at the PGA Golf Tournament location in Benton Harbor, Michigan tomorrow. Probably at the same time the PGA is on. You just look that up and then head over there and start protesting. Okay? And maybe bring some of that Trinity food with you and throw it at the golfers. Okay. All right. Get back to work. I titled the show tonight, Doing a Great Job, Brownie. Remember that? That was from Hurricane Katrina. Bush had appointed that clown, Brown, who his previous experience was running some kind of show, horse shows or something like that, and he made him head of FEMA. And then there's this big flood, and Brownie doesn't know what the hell to do, but Bush loved him. Doing a great job, Brownie. Down there in New Orleans. And I named that the show because it came to my mind this week. You might recall the show we did about Kraft International, about Chris Kyle, the American sniper, how he formed that company. It was a training company over there in Texas called Kraft International. And then some clowns and jokers tried to claim that Kraft International was down there at Boston bombing. And then later on, one complete psycho who was a total manic depressive lunatic, bipolar, tried to claim that Kraft International was at San Bernardino just recently doing that shooting when they've been out of business for years. They've been bankrupt for years. And they don't even exist. But this idiot, his expert says, Kraft International was a lunatic. So I did a whole show on Kraft International about a month ago, let's say, right? And what usually happens when you do one of my big reports like that, I did one on Agenda 21 and different things. And I'll start getting emails because, people will type in search engine Kraft International, whatever, or people who maybe worked over there with Kraft or worked with Chris Kyle or knew Chris Kyle will have those alerts, that Google alert, if anything gets posted on the internet, you get alerted right away and hear about it. So I started getting emails right away and comments on YouTube and messages through YouTube and little messages here and there through Facebook about, hey, Ed, you're right on target about this. And it seems that there's a lot of people who knew Chris Kyle, who served with Chris Kyle, and who worked with Chris Kyle and lived, near Chris Kyle. He didn't have a lot of fans in real life, okay? It seems that when he came back from the service, and by the way, even when he served over there, it seems like he was a lot of self-promotion. And there's this whole big controversy, too, about his stolen valor, that he claims that he had certain medals and certain kills, and none of this is really... there's a lot of guys that are pissed off about this with Chris Kyle. And I got some notices, and they says, hey, Ed, check into the story about where he claims that he was in New Orleans, and he's told several versions of the stories to several different people. One, he claims that that the Navy SEALs recommissioned him and sent him to New Orleans and put him on top of the Astrodome there, and he killed 30 people, sniper, shooting looters. And then there's another version where he claimed that he went to work for Blackwater, and he was down there working for Blackwater. So, and this is different stories that he's told to people that are emailing me. And they're all saying, Ed, all this stuff is crazy. And when Chris came back, he wasn't doing any kind of mercenary work whatsoever, nothing like that at all. But that for the most part, his marriage was failing. He was about to get divorced. His business was failing. The guy was drunk all the time and just making up stories, promoting himself. He was only interested in doing interviews and promoting his book and working on his movie deal and a second book and a second movie deal and stuff like that. So I've gotten a lot of information about him from people who really, too, question that he even holds a record of kills while he was in service. So I got into this whole little email exchange about New Orleans, and it made me think about Bush telling Brownie, hey, you're doing a great job, Brownie. When these people on roofs and the whole town's being flooded, And another thing that always stuck out to me, too, about that whole New Orleans thing is before all the crap started hitting the fan, I remember there was a press conference with the Attorney General, and when Bush was announcing that he was going to send aides to New Orleans, the whole controversy at the time was, well, those people down there in New Orleans, they're all so corrupt and so crooked that we know they're going to steal the aid we're sending them. So he brought out the Attorney General, and he said, oh, don't you worry. We're going to be very creative in investigating fraud and abuse with the money we send to New Orleans. And a couple of days later, saw that, they couldn't even get him a bottle of water or get him rescued from a roof. Forget sending him money. But that iconic moment where Bush turns around and says, doing a great job, Brownie. And reminded me, because I get that email or message, I'd say about 15, 20 times a day. Someone will write on YouTube, doing a great job, Ed. Keep it up. Or I'll get an email, doing a great job, Ed. Great show. I love the show. Doing great work. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. Don't give up, Ed. Keep going. All the time. Hundreds of messages, about short messages. You get a YouTube message, short little messages. Keep up the good work. Keep going, Ed. Doing a great job. Right? But the thing is, I gotta ask you, and I appreciate when you send me that message. I really do. I honestly do, and I would rather hear that rather than people complaining and moaning and groaning about every little detail. They don't like the audio. They have a complaint about this. They have a complaint about that. I'd much rather hear people say, "Hey, you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. Don't give up." Okay. But the thing is, I would like to think that if you enjoy the show that much, that you take the time out to send me a little message, that you agree we're doing some good stuff here. If you listen to the shows we did earlier tonight with Charles Ortel and Montgomery Blair Sibley, you don't hear these guys on the radio every day. You definitely don't hear them, on these, I'm in all these different chat rooms. People bring me into these groups and stuff like that. And I says, oh, yeah, I got this guy coming on, Harvard MBA, and he's going to be talking about how the Clinton Foundation is a total fraud. He's got all these, been researching and investigating. The guy's an expert on charity fraud. And I get a message back. Well, I would assume it's fraud since the Clintons are both shape-shifting reptilians. Okay. Now, this is the people I'm in business with. People in the same business as me. All right? So I think we're doing a certain quality level of work here for you. And there's a number of people out there that think we're doing a good job. Now, even if, let's say 10% of those people that say, hey, you're doing a great job, if 10% of those people would become members at OppermanReport.com for $6, right? I mean, we would be running a huge operation here. I'm talking, Hillary was in town the other day. I could have been down there covering that. I had to work. I need brakes on my car. I can't be, I did make that noise when you drive. I got to put new brake pads on it. So I can't get down to the strip and do this kind of stuff. I can't, afford it because then I'll need rotors. Okay. So my point is, if you enjoy the show, if you're getting some value from what I'm giving you, we got to be in this together, and you got to give me some value back. And if we just had this, by the way, too, if just this month, okay, we could just get like 100 people to sign up for that $6 for the monthly subscription. And you can end it next month. It doesn't auto-charge your card. You have to renew it every month, and people do. Some people don't, but most people do. But just this month, then when I go to California this month, and I'm not working at my regular job, and we're driving up and down California doing all this work, really, for you, then when I come back, then in July, I'll have my rent money in July so I don't get evicted. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm asking you here. And to do this gig here, too, in California, I'm going to need a couple of shirts. We're going to need gas. We're going to need, driving around money, lodging, motels. So if you think we're doing a good job, as good a job as Brownie did, okay, who gets paid very, very well, and all these guys with the Clinton Foundation chuckling around billions of dollars, I'm asking for $6, guys, $6. If we could just see a flood of this one, and you don't have to renew next month, but just for this 1 month, guys, And I know too, there's a lot of people that get that member section for free. I know you guys, you got to figure all little kind of schemes and stuff like that to get that show, sharing your passwords and all kinds of stuff, guys. I see what's going on. It's embarrassing, okay? It's embarrassing, okay? Guys, I know who's doing it, okay? I'm like Santa Claus. I see what you're doing, okay? I know who's being naughty. I know who's being nice. Okay, so don't make me embarrass you. Okay, pay up. Nobody gets hurt. Okay, doing a great job, Brownie. The Hillary emails. In my opinion, the FBI has to indict Hillary. We just saw a report, and I think the FBI will indict Hillary. Okay, and everybody out there who says the fix is in, the fix is not in. And I'm going to explain to you why. Okay, and I'm a guy. I know a lot of people that have been indicted by the FBI. So I think I know what I'm talking about. Now, you might, if you take a look at this State Department report that came out the other day, right? A couple of things here we got to take a look at. Hillary Clinton did not cooperate with that investigation. Okay. Now this is the State Department. This is like an internal investigation. The State Department. She was in charge of the State Department. Most of these people doing this investigation worked for her. These are former Hillary Clinton subordinates. Everyone here at this State Department right now is under the authority of Barack Obama, her buddy. Right? This is a sweetheart investigation. This is the one you want to cooperate with. This is the one you have nothing to worry about, right? But no. And what do we find out from the results of this audit? First of all, that she didn't cooperate. Her IT guy didn't cooperate. And her main, Uma Aberdeen, that woman there, who's that guy? Weiner, his wife, Anthony Weiner's wife. Uba Aberdeen, whatever her name is. None of these people cooperated with the investigation. With the friendly one, the one that should be a piece of cake. Al Sharpton can go deal with, But anyway. And it comes back with, they have emails that she didn't give them. Okay? She got to be crapping her pants about that. They have emails describing, hey, someone's trying to hack into the server. I'm going to shut it down. They have emails of her saying, if we have to come up with another device to keep the personal stuff private. She's avoiding the Freedom of Information Act request and the public open source laws. But the biggest thing is, see, there's no fix. The fix is not in. The fix wasn't in with the State Department. Because if the fix was in, she would have known it was going to be a crappy report, but she didn't. And when this report came out, they were scrambling. They were scrambling that day. And Brian Fallon, her rep, he came up with some really crappy response to that, where basically he comes back and lies about it, of what the report said, So he wasn't prepared for this. They weren't ready for this. Everything I'm hearing, guys, is that the Clintons are in a bubble. They're in denial of what's going on around them. And I'm telling you guys, first of all, the FBI has to indict because the State Department's already ruled that their procedures and their guidelines were violated. There's no way around this. I also suspect that they're also looking into the Clinton Foundation. Because you got to remember, this guy, the IT guy, what's his name? I got it right here. Okay. Where is it? Come on, guys. Help me out here. Oh, here it is. Brian. I just lost it. Brian Pagolino. Okay, he was granted immunity. Now, this guy's an interesting character, see, because he worked for the Clinton Foundation. And he worked for the Clintons' campaign. He was their IT guy first. But the Clintons are so cheap, they didn't want to pay his salary. So they take him over to the State Department. Basically, he's doing the exact same job he did before. But the State Department's paying his paycheck now. Okay, which is very unusual to begin with, too. The FBI gave this guy immunity. Now, this guy here deleted his whole email his own. There is not one email of this character on that server. But he had an email account on him, but he deleted it. He deleted his entire email account, and he deleted his entire archive of all his emails on there. Okay? Now, but they gave him immunity for this. He's talking to them. He has immunity. Uba Aberdeen, she's not, and Hillary's not, right? But this guy's talking. Because he was connected up with the Clinton Foundation. You listen to my guest tonight. There is a plethora of crime going on at that Clinton Foundation that they could be indicted for. Okay? No shortage. See, my problem is I got my notes all over the place tonight. Well, we're getting down toward the end anyway. I just screwed that up totally. Okay, so anyway, that's my theory with the email server case. That it's not going to turn out well for Hillary at all. They weren't ready for this thing here with the State Department. Not even close. And now it's going to turn out that they're not going to be ready for when the FBI comes back, especially since this guy Comey has been wanted to go after the Clintons previously and said that they're dishonest people who interfere with investigations and destroy evidence and all that kind of stuff. You might have noticed that Trump brought out the Vince Foster case this week. You know, we did a show on Vince Foster. And the press is jumping over backwards, bending over backwards, saying Vince Foster, oh, that's all been investigated. It's all been proven that it was a suicide. But yet, they don't bring up any of the details that we brought up on our show when we discussed the Vince Foster. The Vince Foster case. Anybody who's investigated the case, there's no doubt there's so much overwhelming evidence that, at the very least, the way that the Clintons covered up the crime and broke into a safe and all that stuff, and and were reporting the death even before it was reported. So none of that's being discussed when the media is bending over backwards trying to excuse Hillary for the Vince Foster situation. But I don't know, for some I don't know why Trump's not going into that in a little bit more detail. Also, too, I got a call this week out of the blue from the guys behind the Ted Cruz Oswald's father story. I got the whole scoop in the background about how that story got. The people who brought it to Trump, the people who brought it to the National Enquirer, and kind of forced the National Enquirer to report the story. I'm not free to discuss that totally yet. But it's just one of these other things that I'm working on in the background, And there's always something going on that people bring me little tidbits of information here and there that I can't talk about right away. Okay. Well, I guess one last thing we could talk about is it's kind of funny. Spring is in the air, right? And I'm 53 years old, and you learn some things at 53 you wish you knew when you were 23. So this is a little message to all the 23-year-old guys out there. If you notice at the beginning of the summertime, right? Like maybe in the past week, you've been walking around, and or you go to a bar or something like that, right? And all these women are suddenly flirting with you, right? So you probably think to yourself, well, boy, this must be my aftershave, this new aftershave that I'm using. Or, boy, maybe I lost some weight. I got this really good haircut. Or it must be the shirt I'm wearing. They really like this shirt. Right? Maybe that's why suddenly I'm getting all this attention. See, that's what you think when you're 23. But when you're 53 years old, you realize that that's not it at all. What it is that, and every woman knows this, is when springtime comes, you want to have a boyfriend for the summer. So in springtime, you start looking around for a guy to date who will be your boyfriend, that you'll have a boyfriend for the summer. But what you also need to know is that they'll take pretty much any guy. You just got to be a little bit decent looking, a little bit talkative. Because as long as they got that one boyfriend and they're all set for the summer, they'll just find a better guy. A better guy comes along, they'll drop you in a minute. They go with the better guy. This will also happen before Christmas time because they want to have a boyfriend for Christmas. This will happen, too, before Valentine's Day. They got to have a boyfriend for Valentine's Day, right? So a couple weeks before Valentine's Day, everybody's being nice to you. Springtime, all the women are being nice. In the middle of the summer, the end of the summer, you're out of luck. They forget it. They're all taken. No one's looking for the very guy. Also, too, now the only thing, this is a theory, this will work, and all you 23-year-old guys out there, you got to remember this, because you can use this now. Okay? There's a monkey wrench in this, too. Because there could be a wedding, okay? They could have a wedding to go to in a month, and they need a boyfriend for that wedding, too. Of course, a lot of weddings are in June. So the monkey wrench is, too, if a girl is very fluent with you, too, you might want to ask her, hey, do you have a wedding coming up? Okay, and that could be what it is. All right. So that's my little advice to you young men out there and looking in the ways of love, or what you might want to call it. I don't know. Who cares? Oh, boy. All right. It's been a long night. I think I've done a good show. All right. Yeah, 2 hours. 3 hours altogether. Yeah, I get hit on all the time. All right, guys. I'll say goodnight, and I'll see you next week. Next week, like I said, the after show. Ooh, that's a good question. If we do an after show, it'll be from a hotel room. It probably won't be from here because I think we're going to be on our trip to California, working on all that. All right, okay, I'll kill you a million times. Whenever anybody says to me now, keep it going, keep up the good work, keep going, Ed, it's going to be like Niagara Falls. All right? Niagara Falls. All right, boys and girls, I love you. Thank you so much. Next week, we'll probably do something either from a motel. It's going to be a tape show. And then William Ramsey is going to host for me. He's going to fill in for me on, what's that called? Saturday. Doing a live show. Everybody loves him. He did a great job last time. All right, guys. Love you. See you next week. Thank you so much.